Hey everyone, the card list for set 5 is now fully out. So that means it's time to build a deck for every single archetype in this set. So there will be 8 decks today, 8 decks. And I won't be doing any of the old decks from like Nirvana, like Magnolia, things like that. Because basically nothing really has changed much for them. Even if there was any changes, it'd be like a 1 card change. So I don't think it's really worth it, right? And honestly, I don't have enough time to do all those, because I'll just be recapping the same thing and there'll be like 20 billion decks, right? So we're only going to do the 8 decks from this new set, something that you can play with, something that will be a good starting ground. Of course, these will not be optimized. These are just the preliminary lists. And then as the format goes, these lists will obviously get more optimized or not. If they're just, everyone plays like the old stuff because they just seem really, really good compared to some of the new stuff, then yeah, maybe we won't see them optimized. But that is a chance for you then to make waves. So first off, we actually have Dragonic Overlord. I was about to say Nirvana. I'm just so used to just starting for Nirvana, but we've got Overlord. So Overlord got the ends, but you can look that there's basically been not many changes to the deck at all. And to be honest, I didn't really change that much to the deck simply because I kind of made it more kind of, how do you say it, nostalgic, because the whole set's about nostalgia, right? If you just look at the grade 2 lineup, we've got the Harlem Berserk Dragon and Burning Horn Dragon. That is a reminder of the old times, right? The old times. But if we also look at it, we're still running 4 Dragonic Overlord, and then we got 4 The End as well. I don't really want to go straight into The End, because The End's like cross-ride ability is actually relatively relevant compared to the other ones. So you really want to go into Overlord and then The End, which makes it a bit slower. But to be honest, OG Overlord is still not that bad, right? It's still a restander. You actually snipe rear guards, that's still pretty nice, right? You still trigger off Burning Horn's effect like twice. He gets 5k twice. So the overall Overlord game plan is still fulfilled. Also, you have this new grade 2, which allows you to put this card into the soul and then give a unit 5k if it's discarded during the battle phase. So you will definitely be doing some battle phase discards regardless of which Overlord you're on. So this will help fill out your soul, and life is good. Nahalem keeps on giving more 5ks, and yeah, again, life is good, right? You can definitely cut some of the, maybe like 1 Overlord or 1 Berserk Dragon and things like that just to add more other stuff into the deck. But otherwise, I've stuck with the relatively good D game plan for Overlord, which is get bulky, stay fat, stay strong. So we still have the 4 modder cards, and then we're still running like the fronts as well. So we've got that bulk still going, but then now you can just go into the end and still just double attack with the Vanguard to the face and just feel very, very good, right? Some of the other grade 2s where they require you to hit, I've kind of taken out just because if you go into the end, it's not always confirmed that you will hit, but you will restand and you can attack face. So good times. So the next archetype we're going to take a look at is Tamayura. Now, this is one of the new ride lines of the Dual Nations, though the Dual Nations don't really do much, right? It doesn't do much. It's just kind of cool, and that's about it. That's about it. Anyway, Tamayura, her skill is that you get to make multi-attacks, and then you get some power as well. So what she does, she gives on the ride phase, she can give the front row 5k, and then that kind of just persists. It's kind of like a mini Persona ride. And then when she attacks, you can CB1 to call a card from the soul onto the rearguard circle, and then, or you can call two specific cards out instead. So it'll be the Ririmi and the Rarami. So it'll be the 2 dolls, right? So you can technically make 5 attacks, which is pretty good, right? These are the dolls. And then that's pretty much it. Now, this deck does use a lot of soul, and it's kind of really annoying in that I think it's like missing 1 card to fill out its flex slot. But yeah, that's kind of it. Otherwise, 5 attacks. The Tamayura order is, it's a Soul Blast 2, and then you get an effect that minuses your opponent's front row by 10k. So it's like a Shiryuki. But you do see that this order is a Soul Blast 2, and then each of the doll's skills are Soul Blast 2. So she is, when it comes into play, if you have the other doll, you Soul Blast 2 and draw a card. And then the other one is just if you, same thing comes into play if you have the other doll, Soul Blast 2, and your opponent, choose opponent's rear guards and put it into their soul. So its removal because they are Soul Blast 2, you generally don't want to use their effects, at least the Doll's effects, that much, because it's slightly overcosted, though, you know, Soul Blast 2 to draw a card is pretty cool and reminds you of, you know, back in 2015, 16? But if you also count the number of Soul that you have, when you first ride your grade 3, you'll have 3 cards in Soul if you haven't spent any. That's enough to just use one order or one of their skills, and then on one Persona ride, then you have like 4 Soul, right? You have 4 Soul unless you use some. So you have to be a bit more careful with the amount of Soul usage you have. Of course, you do run the Soul in crits, which can kind of help that out. You also have this new grade 3, which is kind of just straight up decent for the archetype. So when at the end of the battle that attacked, you can put it into Soul, and then if you do, you choose one of your rear guards, it gets plus 5k. So overall, it fuels your Soul. It gets rid of itself. That doesn't really matter. Like, you kind of want it to go away because you're going to call things to the front row again. So you might as well just have an empty front row ride and then just, yeah, good times. The grade 1, this grade 1 also generates Soul. When she comes into play, you can look at the top 7 cards of your deck, and you can grab a normal unit that has glitter, the glitter effect, or glitter archetype, whatever you want to call it. Or stealth in its card name, and then you can put that into your Soul, like one of them into the Soul, and that's good. So it kind of fuels your Soul, and that's kind of the key cards you need. And then the reason why I say it feels like it's missing a card is you're forced to run like some flex slots. The reason why I'm running this is because it has stealth in the name, but otherwise his effect is pretty jank. So when it comes into play, on the rear guard circle, you Soul Blast 1, and then you pick from your drop zone a card with glitter or stealth in its card name, and you put it into your Soul. It has to be a normal unit. So, okay, you Soul Blast 1 to put a copy of another card into Soul. So, what's the point, right? Well, like, rarely, you know, if these dolls, you don't have any of them or you're missing one, at least you can kind of filter it out, and that's that. Otherwise, it's got stealth in its name, you're putting in. By the way, these glitter effects, right? It's just when they get retired from the Guardian Circle, you put them to Soul. So ideally, every turn you want to intercept with them, and they go back into Soul. So yeah, but they technically are good targets to get rid of, to retire. If your opponent's playing some kind of deck that can retire, or they want to just attack into it, then I guess this is where the stealth fiend comes into. Is this? Yeah, I think it's a stealth fiend, right? Comes into play. Other like there were other choices, but they kind of don't really proc that well. Things like, you know, there was a card that was like CB2 and then Soul Charge. It was like Soul Charges, but CB2 is pretty hefty when it comes to costs. Though this deck doesn't actually use that much CB, right? The most CB it does is Tamayura's effect, which is on attack. So you technically can play more CB costed cards, but even so, there aren't that many CB cards that Soul Charge 1 in Dragon Empire. Yeah, so, and the ones that do, they do require like you to proc like a retire, which doesn't really happen in this deck at all. So, sorry Eugene fans, but that's that. Anyway, let's move on to the next deck. So the next archetype we have is Kheios, and I have to say I had a lot of fun building Kheios, more than I thought I would. Right, because it's like a pseudo Highland deck. Basically, the gimmick of Kheios is that you have to have cards with different cards named in your Soul, right? And then it'll get more and more effects. So it's like a... Is it a scuffed Barrow Magnus? I don't know. Barrow Magnus looks kind of like a brat compared to Kheios, but you know, he looks much more smarter, I guess, and that's why his effect is smarter. But anyway, his effect is, he's got 2 effects. So once per turn, you can CB1 and discard a card, and then you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, pick one of them to add to hand, pick one to call them, and then put the rest into your Soul, right? And it's up to pick one, up to 1 to call, and the rest will go into Soul. And then the second effect is when this card attacks a Vanguard, right? If you have 8 cards of different card name in your Soul, you may pick one of your rear guards and it gets plus 10k. But if you have 13 or more different cards in your Soul, with different card names in your Soul, you just pick your whole field, or pick all your rear guards and they get 10k. So unfortunately, he doesn't get 10k. So feels bad, but just boost him, right? You get to dip. And then you kind of just go, okay, what are the key things you need to do in this deck to ensure this game plan goes off as best as possible? So you just run a lot of different cards. Surprise, surprise. And then the key cards you want to run, you can run like 2 or 3, or then if you, yeah, pretty much. So you can see here, even the triggers, right? You can kind of get away with running like a whole bunch of them. So you can 2x every single trigger, and that kind of makes your... That's actually not that bad when you think about it. You can 2x everything instead of the draws, and then with the draws you have like just 1x the draws, right? So you have like 1 of each different draw, which it's kind of a bit... How do you say it? Like, you miss out on like the 10k draw bit, but that's life, right? And then the crits, you can run 2 of each crit, which is cool. And then you can run 2 of the 10k fronts, so you don't have to run any of the janky fronts. And that just fills out all the triggers. You have 2 different kinds of heal triggers, and then you have 1 over trigger, right? So the trigger lineup is all good. And then for the perfect guards, you can split the perfect guards if you want to go that hard. So we have 2 of the TD perfect guard, and we have 2 of the normal perfect guards that, you know, we all know and love. And then, you know, I guess I run 1 Pandemonium Tactics because it's Soul Charge 4, everyone. It's all about the Soul Charge 4. There's some interesting cards I do run multiples of. I was thinking of running a lot more of this. So this is a new Flaming Pony, I think. Basically, it's like a Dimension Creeper. So if it's in the Soul, you can bind it and Soul Charge 2. Why can you run multiples of these? Because if you have a lot of these in Soul, then you can just keep on binding them and not feel bad, because you only need like 1 copy of itself in Soul, and this will just turn into 2 Soul Charges that can kind of snowball. But, you know, funnily enough, I kind of ran out of space. Kind of ran out of space in the deck, so I just kept it at 2. Another card I run like at 3x, right? I run 3 Chegras because he's not name restricted or anything. And it has a pretty important effect of getting a card from the Soul, right? Getting a card from the Soul is pretty good, and being able to just, you know, at least give a small buff to the front row is pretty nice. Another card I ran multiples of is this Mikani. So this is the Dual Nation card for Chaos. When it comes into play, right, on the rearguard circle, you counterblast 1 and soul blast 1. And then based on the Soul Blaster card, the grade of the Soul Blaster card, you can retire one of your opponent's rearguards with the same grade. So, okay, that's like a nice retire. But the second effect is the most important one, the Glitter with Chaos. So when this card attacks a Vanguard, if your Soul has 8 or more different cards in the card name, different card name cards, you stand this unit, and then at the end of the turn, put this unit into Soul, right? So you get to put 10k on him, and then you get to double dip, right? Double dip the power, and then you put all your triggers on him, and you get two attack. You get multi. This is how you get multi attacks, basically. And if you don't have him, then you feel very, very bad. So you want multiples of him, and like you can even play like drop 2 of them and go whoa, like 5 attacks, right? Isn't that crazy? But then, right, here's the thing: you run out of cards, you run out of Mekanis. So because they all go to Soul, so you can Chagras and get them back. So that's just that. Right, that's that. Other cards I run 2 of. So Crimson Expeller, you know, on attack Soul Charge 1. That's cool. This is a Crimson Expeller that doesn't require you to Soul Charge 1. This is a optional effect, so kind of good near the end of the game. But hey, 2 of each cards that on attack Soul Charge 1. It's not bad. And then there's a bunch of other cards that Soul Charge. So this is CB1 Soul Charge. You don't use that much CB in the game, so it's okay. And then, you know, Brainwash Expeller, all these cards, they're pretty. The rest of the deck is just pretty straightforward. Put in the good cards. If you want to take out some more cards, you can put some more Flaming Ponies in if you want. And yeah, it really depends on how you want to build the rest of the deck. I just built it around, I want to Soul Charge, and they all have to be different. And eventually, yeah, we can just pop off and win, right? So that's kind of it. Very, very long list, though. Very long list. Next we have is Thegrea. So yeah, this is the one that's been, I don't know. People like this the most because she's stacked, right? What we do is we ride the light one instead, because the light Thegrea has a great first effect. It just allows you to build a field, and that's that. And then speaking of building field, I was like, okay, how can we build more field? Let's just run K and Bedivere, because Bedivere is like not name restricted. You just have to be a grade 3 Vanguard. And just CB1 Soul Boss 1 calls a K in the same column, and then start bashing, making bodies pretty nice. I run one for Sato because Sato's cool, you know. He's also stacked, I guess. And then there's some other cards just trying to fill spaces, you know, trying to fill spaces. We run a Pentagleam because check top decks, not bad too. And then there's this new grade 1 where if it's in the back row rearguard circle, if the card in front of it stands, you can return it back to the hand. So I guess you can, like, with this you combo with either Thegrea's, you place it down on the spots behind the Thegrea where it would stand. So, you know, if it's on Dark Thegrea, you'd put it behind her, and, you know, you boost and then bounce it back. And then, hey, if you're on Bastion Thegrea, put behind like another rearguard and stand that and go bounce it back to hand. That's pretty cool. It's pretty good. It's a nice gimmick. And then we have, like, you run 4 Maples. It's pretty much, you run 4. You have to run 4 of it, right? Like, what else are you doing? Trigger lineup just straightforward. 8 crits, 3 draws. Yeah, pretty cool. Next we have is MLB. Right, MLB is kind of a bit weird, I have to say. Like, if you think of MLB, when I think of MLB back then, and since I've been playing Zero with MLB, I'm missing. You're looking at the effect. Okay, there's ways to put blasters into Soul, but where is the plus 10k? But there isn't. So you're basically hitting like a 15k every single turn. So that's kind of like a bit of a wet noodle attack. So to kind of combat the noodliness of it, I put in some Phantom Blaster Overlords, right? Because he makes 4 attacks. When you stall the game a long time, then eventually at some point you can go into him, and because you do run Blaster Ducks anyway, hey, 4 attacks, right? 4 attacks. At some point you just want to win, you don't care about stall anymore. And yeah, that's it. We also, technically there are ways to like immediately make there's ways to put a Blaster Blade and Blaster Duck in your Soul at your turn 2 by running the mains, right? So you ride Blaster Dark, and then you call in the main, you put a Blaster Blade into Soul, and then you can straight up ride into him and go, hey, I'm 15k already. But he's got an effect that lets you, it's such an easy effect, right? Such an easy effect to put things in the Soul, so you don't have to go out of your way to do that. And also, you want to keep like the Blaster Darks out of Soul until you ride your MLB, and every turn you put it into Soul, to be able to just get triple drive every turn, right? That's straight up pressure. Also, Blaster Blade, I think overall is just like straight up better in that, you know, the Vanguard effect just retires anything, and then it doesn't require you to retire your own thing, and then you draw a card. And then if you don't retire anything, sometimes because people play very, very lame, you get to draw a card. So I think it's just very, very easy. The rearguard effect, not that spectacular. So just pop him in first, do that normal ride line, and then pop in a K and Bedivere because, hey, guess what? It calls it, the other card makes a field, bashes the face, cool, right? I run 3 of the order because I think 4 of the order is a bit excessive, and then Painkiller Angel just to draw extra cards, and it soul bosses your infinite soul to, you know, just kind of filter. It's kind of filter, right? But yeah, I guess the Phantom Blaster Overlord is just kind of there because maybe the game goes a bit long and you just want to make 4 attacks. Phantom Blaster Overlord does just give 10k to the Blaster Dog that it calls and to itself as well. So even if you don't Persona Ride, it's still hitting some number, right? Some number. Okay, so pretty cool. And then lastly, we do have the Phantom Blaster Overlord as well. This is the entire deck. I was thinking like maybe I still want to ride my Phantom Blaster Dragon, because overall Phantom Blaster Dragon's ride is not bad. It's just the rest of the card is just, the rest of the effect sucks. Right, but if you ride it on the ride line, you get to call a blaster out and go, hey, that's cool. I got a card from that. I know people have already shown off that you can speed ride just like before with the main. So what you do is you ride your Phantom Blaster Overlord, and then you call in a main, and then put a Phantom Blaster Dragon into Soul, and you get a crit, right? But the way I kind of thought of it too was that, you know, who cares about calling a card? Let's just 4 attack, right? Let's just do 4 attacks immediately and pop off really hard. Now, the one weakness of this is that if you don't have a Phantom Blaster Dragon in your hand within the main, then you don't get the crits from Phantom Blaster Overlord. But to be honest, who cares? Like, screw the crit. Just 4 attack, pop off as far as possible, and just go, right? Just go. So, in the end, I just went, yeah, let's just do that. Let's not worry about calling a card. Let's not worry about if you get the crit, that's fine. If you don't, that's too bad. And that's just that, right? That's just that. Overall, you also don't use that much CB, so you can aggressively use the main. And then, you know, when you're playing Phantom Blaster Overlord, right, you need to retire things. You need to think about how to get bodies on the field. Guess what? Gets free stuff on the field. Well, not really free, but just get stuff. Wow, it's Kheios NCJR again, because he calls the other guy, and that makes 2 targets. I mean, you can technically use Ease Rod Angel as well, because she just calls the top card of the deck for free. But this is like a targeted call. It might feel bad if like all of the Ks are gone from the deck, and then your Bedivere kind of just sits there and does nothing. But well, that's just too bad, right? This is a target call. This might call like something undesirable, right? So yeah, and it's not like you're using much CB anyway. You might as well just dump it. Just dump it in something, call stuff. And then, hey, you're still running 1 Ease Rod. If you don't like this, you can just run more Ease Rods, right? You just run more Ease Rods. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. And then you're just running like 4 Branas, because, you know, it counting itself as retired 2 is just great. And you got perfect guards, and yeah, that's it. So, I don't know. It's like Kheios Bedivere, pretty good combo. It just fills fields. That's just kind of how I look at them. They're bodies. They're bodies on the board. And... you call them, they make 23k. Like, easy. You can run this in all the Keta decks now. As long as you have 8 slots. Cool. Anyway, Rorowa. So Rorowa, this guy's kind of been out for a while. It's Neo Nectar. You make plant tokens, and how do you actually build the deck? Well, you have a specific formation that you really want. You want Rorowa as your Vanguard. You want Ratalina on one side, and then a Momoke token behind her. And then, hey, guess who's back? It's Inlet Pulse Dragon, because you can make 4 attacks with this deck. So you want like the Inlet Pulse on the left side, or the right side, or on the other side, right? So yeah, you have that specific formation you really want. It's like the L formation. But it's a big L for your opponent, right? But it'll be a big L for you if you can't do that formation every single turn. So what are some other cards that you can put in the deck? Well, first you put in the Null Guards, and then you have exactly 8 slots. Well, not really 8 slots, but you have a bunch of slots that kind of can be anything else. So look at this card. This is a new card. It's a CB1. You can retire 2 of your Reguards, and then you can draw a card, and it gets 5k. So you make so many tokens for free, just retire them. Give 5k and draw a card. You know, drawing a card's good. The amount of CB you actually use in this deck is kind of not that high. Rorowa doesn't have a CB, it's a Soul Blast, so you have to be careful about Soul a bit more. And then Ratalina, okay, to make a Momoke token, you need a CB1, but hopefully that Momoke token stays forever, and then you don't have any CB cost, right? But again, the other effect, the second effect of Ratalina requires a Soul Blast one, and that is the power gain. So yeah, you will be using way more Soul than you'll be using CB. The other card that we are using here is just, this card is when it comes to play on the Reguard circle, CB1, and call up to 2 plant tokens. So yeah, this is how you just bounce CB, right? You call tokens, and then you eat tokens. Call tokens, eat, and then your Momoke token can eat tokens too. But that's where all the CB is actually at. Yeah. And then we have, how do we make sure we always do our L formation? Well, you want Spiritual Body Condensation, because if you've been playing a lot of Magnolia, it's the same idea, right? You always want stuff. Your Inlet Pulse makes Soul, and then you can call the Inlet Pulse back out, right, with this. Or if you're missing a card, you can call that back out with this. And that's just great. That's great, right? And then lastly, you know, because you have nothing else to play, here's the Twisted Malice. You require 2 of your tokens. You get to draw a card. Yay. You put into Soul, counter charge. Basically does everything. So yeah, Inlet Pulse saves the day, and you know, your Spiritual Body gets back anything that you're missing. And if you don't have anything that you're missing, just get back an Inlet Pulse. and then just L it up, right? L it up, L formation up, and continue to win. And then the last archetype we have is Ava. So Ava is, when I saw Ava's card full, I felt kind of sad, because I wanted more research cards. We wanted more of the Kenkyu cards, but alas, she only has 4. Because once you get that 3rd research, things go a bit more smoothly. A lot of more effects are activated. Ava's effect, you can look at top 3 instead of 2. So that's good. But then your other guy, your Obscuridade, right? His effects start popping off. Okay, his effects start popping off. First off, he gets plus 10k power instead of plus 5k power, so that's way more Chad than it was before. And then his other effect will, when it gets placed on the rearguard circle by an effect, he gets a crit if you have 3 or more research cards, so specifically research cards. And then that crits are good, right? Crits are good. So that's why I think it's very, very important to get 3 research immediately. You get 2 research from the ride lines, so you can kind of want to like hard mulligan into the 3rd research. And once you get the 3rd research as well, whenever you play this, right, you get to also bind one of your opponent's rear guards. So if, like, again, if something's overdressed, you bind everything. That feels great, right? You feels great. And that's why I also ran like 3 Blast Darks in my Overlord deck, just in case you face something like this, which will permanently get rid of your stuff. Hey, you have 3, right? You have 3. But yeah, this becomes like a relatively decent card. Otherwise, you just get to draw 1 and discard 1, right? So it's not like really plussing, but then you get a bunch of these free cards anyway. But yeah, once you put it on your 3rd, then it becomes like minusing your opponent, which is pretty good. So again, you're gonna need you want to hard mulligan one of these into your hand, and then the ride line will kind of solve the rest, right? These all kind of grab one research from the deck, so you get 3, and then you're basically winning. Now, how do we fill out the rest of the deck? So what I did was I run 2 of this grade 2. Basically what he does is you Soul Blast 1, you draw 1, and you discard a card. And then if you have an order card, a set order in your order zone, it gets plus 5k. So it's a 15k bid. It lets you kind of filter through your deck. Can kind of reach your stack at some point, because you do have a bunch of cards at the bottom of the deck. If you don't call Obscuridade from the deck with Ava, you have a bunch of cards sitting at the bottom of the deck that can reach. But you're wondering, okay, this requires a Soul Blast 1. Where are you going to get where's the cost, right? You're Soul Blasting so much. How do you have it? Well, after you use all your researches, right? You basically have a bunch of soldiers sitting around, not doing anything. So you might as well just use it for a filter, and you can proc off some other discard skills as well, like this weird octopus penguin. So when this is discarded during a turn, when this is discarded, you can look at the top 5 cards for a set order and just add it to your hand. So this is just one way to dig for the researchers. If you're missing, you use it for the ride line, or just off this other discard, or just from research discard as well, right? That actually procs it off. This also means you can run more like set orders, because it doesn't really specify which. It just says any set orders. You can run any of the world cards as well. I think the 15k Shadow Army token, Eclipse Moonlight one, is the best out of all of them. It just requires 1 CP1 to make a 15k token. So if you want to run more, you can run that. But I personally didn't really care. I only run 2 of this, because I just didn't want to put in more order cards, right? And then I run 1 of this grade 2. You can probably run more, but it's just basically if you have a set order in the order zone, it gets boost. So it's like a 10k boost. It's a grade 2. Hey, just nice. And then lastly, I run 4 of this. This just gets 2k for each set order in your order zone. So, right, you want to reach that 3 research. Once you do, she becomes 13k. 13k boost is pretty good. 13k is a good number, right? So 10 plus 13, that's great. 5 plus 13, anything plus 13 is usually pretty good. So yeah, I run 4 of this, just to be cool. And then 4 Burble Means, right? Because Burble Means is really, really good. And there's definitely some different ways to build this. You can put more emphasis on the Octopus Penguin and just put more worlds in, kind of dig for more worlds. I think that will probably be a very, very popular play. But I just focus more on like having this. There's 10 cards that can allow you to soul charge 1 to be able to pull off 3 research ASAP, and that's basically it. After that, it's all fair game. 4 attacks, hope for the best, Yada yada. That's it, right? That's it. And you can actually run a meteor as well to soul charge, and this can help you dig for the meteor. But you know, might as well just run Gravidia Well. The point. Yeah, but that is all the decks from set 5. Let me know what you guys think. Just bear in mind, again, these are all preliminary decks. You want to do way more testing before they come out, because this is a Springfest set, of course. So yeah, you want to do some of the testing and optimize either these lists, or just go, hey, these aren't good enough. Let's go try Magnolia. Yep. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye.